we just did Plan B.
Yep.
That's awesome. Yeah. I think I went to a bunch of talks at Plan B, obviously, and there's this animal that kept coming up in various talks, including my own, the bear. And
it's not even spelled that way.
Well, yeah, that's a reoccurring theme, I think, in our stuff. I think we should talk about it.
Yeah. Because we mostly talk about pair, which is on top of bear.
Yeah.
Or bear is part of pair.
Yeah. Sometimes I talk about hair. Somebody was telling me we should make some product called Fair. Yeah, that's for later. So got Casper here. Casper actually made Bear. We're just taking credit, as usual. But I think like people probably saw that, and there's going to be videos out, obviously, also about those talks. And I think people see that and they're like, "That sounds freaking amazing!"
Right.
And I think just hearing the story, because I was thinking that the story is so cool about just how that happened and what it is and stuff.
Yeah.
That we should probably just we should record that and share that with the world.
Totally.
Before we forget.
So, should we start with pair and then go into bear, or should we start with bear?
Yeah, maybe we should just start with a quick overview of what bear is.
Right.
What is bear?
What is bear, Casper?
In your opinion?
What Node.js was ideally supposed to be.
Oh, that's a good take.
How do you mean?
Well, just the JavaScript runtime, really.
Yeah.
Without any sort of standard library, but all of that we built on top. So it's basically, the underlying JavaScript engine plus just the bits you need to get all of the userland modules going. Because we already have that. We already have our own networking stack. We already have, all the P2P primitives you need to build all the things you do on top of pair. All the standard library stuff that Node.js brings along is fluff.
It's not necessary.
It's not necessary.
And it gets in the way as well, because like Matthias and I, we were like into Node like very early days, and we were sort of part of that whole kind of curve. and one of the things that was quite often talked about in those days was how do we get it to run on mobile?
Yeah.
And that was never really, someone achieved it at some point, but like it wasn't maintained, and then it fell out and it didn't work. But like Bear runs on mobile, no problem as a first-class citizen, and I think that's huge.
It's so true. And I think we talked about this obviously also in the past, but like when you hear the marketing about all the JS, because JS is like a universal language, it's always about running everywhere. And then you kind of realize it actually doesn't really run anywhere. Before we made Bear,
Right.
I find it really interesting how the JavaScript community, to some degree, just are blocking out phones.
Yeah.
It feels a little bit like that, you know what I mean? Outside like React Native and things like that.
But it's systemic, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like they block them out because they don't have the option to do it.
Yeah.
And the option was taken away quite a long time ago.
Yeah, but it's weird, right? Because kind of like, what is it? I don't know the stats, but like, normal people usage is probably like 90-something% phones, I'm guessing. I don't know. Like, it's some insane stat like that. And we're like, well, that's not JavaScript until now.
It's almost like a planned strategy to eliminate JavaScript requirements for business profit. That's almost like that.
So like it's good. Illuminati. That's great.
But it leaves a massive gap.
Yeah.
And we can fill that with Bear.
Yeah, for sure. We should dive into that. I think that's great. Before that, I think it's actually because I was thinking about just the story of Bear and how it happened in the company. Because we're just hackers, open source hackers. I think it just tells a good story of why you should make minimal things, why you should iterate a lot, and how things just kind of happen when you don't plan too much.
Right.
Like good ideas when you cross them. If you're iterative enough, if you're like have the right open source hacker mentality, you don't need to think. Because I often think about how Bear, why hasn't that happened earlier? And I know the answer because it's an insane project. It's the kind of project that any kind of PM or any kind of guy in charge would just be like,
veto.
We're not doing that.
Yeah.
And we just did it.
Yeah.
It was not that hard.
Yeah.
We were Casper now, not that hard. A little hard.
Well, the initial design phase was, I think the hardest thing was deciding just to not do a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Right.
Deciding to keep it
It's
really
really
hard.
hard.
That was really the
There
most difficult choice.
There was actually a moment in the development of Bear, wasn't there, where you realized, oh, actually, we can pull even more. We can pull the process out.
Yeah.
Because it was initially just like built around a process object like Node is,
It was.
and then you were like, wait, we don't need that.
And we had a few building
Yeah,
modules
sure,
as well and stuff.
Yeah.
We pulled all of that out,
Yeah.
just deciding to go like fully minimal.
So Bear is the only module in Bear is the module, right?
No,
Not even.
Not even the module anymore.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's all gone.
Wow.
Yeah, it's just-
Amazing.
So like for context for anybody watching this, I guess it's kind of like, so obviously we're building Heat a whole bunch.
Right.
And like Dave was hinting at, we actually made the first prototype was a desktop at all. Right? It's so long ago, I can't even remember.
Yeah, the first one was a desktop with
much stress ago.
yeah.
And obviously we wanted to make this app work on mobile. We're JavaScript guys. We have a peer-to-peer stack that's JavaScript. And we were like, let's freaking just deploy for mobile. We made a React Native app, cool technology, but we couldn't basically get our peer-to-peer stack to run because, like you said, it's all duct tape. That's 5 years ago.
Yep.
And we decided to just kind of like, hey, let's just freaking prototype. How hard can it be? Because we've been working on this kind of stuff for a long time. Casper is very good at compiling things, very good at tinkering with things, getting them to work. And it's like, is that like, a moment where just hackers meet and they're like, isn't it just like V8,
Right.
the JavaScript engine,
Right.
and then some stuff? How hard is the stuff?
Right.
Um,
When you say hackers, of course, you're not talking about like infiltration hacking. You're talking about the original meaning of hacking, which is like hacking things together, like tinkering, really.
tinkering.
Yeah.
Sure. Hacker is a better word.
Yeah, of course, it's cooler.
But, so we were like, let's freaking make that work, right? So it's like, let's just make a JavaScript engine, Node.js killer to some degree, I think. That's just like has nothing built in, because then it can run anywhere. By actually having nothing built in, it runs everywhere. Runs on mobile, runs on desktop, runs on a server even, anywhere really, and then just like
Embedded too.
embedded if given the right circumstances.
Because it's such a low footprint.
Yeah, like it's like the portability aspect is so cool. Just nail that. And we actually did that just for Keep, because we were like, we're making the app. And then at some point we realized, I guess, it's actually not that hard to just make this a separate thing we can use everywhere. And then we put a name on it. It was Bear. It's so cool.
Yeah. And we were building Pair at the time as well.
Yeah.
And then as soon as that happened, then Bear just automatically became part of Pair.
Yeah, I remember, yeah.
And we had that unlocked Pair terminal apps, and that unlocks a huge amount of things in the future.
Yeah, I mean, also just portability. I remember we sat and we were like, let's just make this code run easier everywhere. I was kind of like, oh, well, now we just embed the runtime. It's so minimal. And it just was so easy.
Yeah, totally.
It's kind of like one of those things where like we spend a couple of days to just undo 2 months of work.
Totally. And this whole approach of like super minimal core, and then building essentially what is the equivalent of the standard Node library in the ecosystem. Yeah. It's so powerful and so optimal for things like mobile and embedded and things like that, because you just use what you need to use. It literally is the original vision of Node, which is batteries not included, but batteries available everywhere.
Actually, I hate that metaphor, batteries included. It sends the wrong signal. It's not about batteries included. It's more like going and buying a car and getting a kebab also, in my opinion. It's kind of like, maybe I like it, but it's kind of like, it's not the essentials.
No.
You always got to boil your problems down to what is the essentials. So Bear basically gives you nothing except like this essential runtime. And Casper and the team then, this was actually really fun for me, because I remember we just released that very minimal runtime and we started talking about it for the first time. And people were like, but what about HTTP, these libraries that Node.js has built in? And they're like, you're never going to get parity, yada, 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 yada. It's such an undertaking. And then the guys just, 4 months later, 5 months later, I can't remember.
Yeah, it was on and off.
On
it
and
wasn't
off.
like focused for...
Exactly, just kind of like they had a list.
Yeah.
And do we have full support now, or are we Like 99%? Or
Most of it is done, yeah.
Yeah,
wow.
definitely in the 90s.
Yeah.
Because that's the thing that maybe people don't realize as well, is that Bear is this very minimal runtime, but also you can run it in a node compatible way.
Yeah, because we have all the modules. It's
Exactly.
just kind of like you install them yourself instead of them being delivered to you.
Yeah.
The guys just did it. That's kind of like, again, like it doesn't have to be that hard sometimes, I feel like.
No, not at all.
How did you make it so that it was so much faster than Node on the init time? Because that blows my mind.
Do less.
It's just about doing less. That's all it's about.
Absolutely just about doing less.
Yeah.
Sometimes that's simple. Huh?
It really is, and that's like kind of a prevailing philosophy within Hole Punch. Is like, how can we boil this down to like the most elegant, simple thing, and remove the complexity?
Yeah, I find it really fascinating. Also, and we talked about this at the conference because they had this, with Hole Punch and also with the Tether group, which we're working with a lot, where we just started sharing these ideas internally, and because there's a lot of smart people also working in our group, they're immediately caught up and they're like, "Whoa, holy shit!" Like this idea that I can just write a little program on desktop and I can deploy it on my phone or on the server, so cool. And they were doing some AI stuff, and immediately they were like, "Wow, we can actually use this to actually just supercharge deployment of AI models."
Yeah. This is where it gets crazy now.
And I love that because AI is a buzzword, obviously, and it's really hard. And the technology behind it is really hard. But actually, if you try to play a lot with like just the different things, the deployment aspect of it is actually really, really hard, which is always frustrating to me. Like you have these artificial networks, but actually running them is hard because they're made for some native thing. You got to do a ton of stuff. You got to target different environments, and then all of a sudden, these guys were like, actually, if we just make it run on Bear, then Casper already figured out how to run it everywhere. And we just have to do the job once, which is kind of like, that sounds almost too good to be true, right? Mm-hmm. But the secret sauce is, like you said, just do less.
Right.
So, yeah, I think that's
right. Cool. And with Bear and Pair together, you almost have this like new kind of container model in a way.
Yeah, oh, totally.
Because with Pair, you can obviously run apps peer-to-peer, so remotely, but you're running Bear, and Bear runs everywhere. So I don't know, it's just mind-blowingly powerful. And I think one of our biggest challenges in terms of everything we're doing, in terms of like trying to make things both elegant, but also sit at an intersection where it sort of meets multiple objectives at once, is actually communicating like, oh, by the way, you can, like, this can do this in a way, like, it's not one thing, you know what I mean? Sure. Like, a lot of products are just like one thing, here's what it is, and this is what it's for. This thing is like, for so many things, it's so adaptable because it's almost like a sort of everything we do, we focus on primitives all the way up and down. Yeah. And it's a primitive that can then be just reused in so many contexts that it's actually overwhelming to try to list them all.
Yeah, for sure. It's kind of funny how minimal you can do anything. It's kind of like people, when they just hear it, they'll probably think the opposite. It's like, oh, what can I use it for? But it's like, you can use it for anything. Mm-hmm.
Which sounds like nonsense.
Yeah, it sounds like, that's what I mean.
But it's not.
It's not. It's so powerful. I just often think, I used to work on Node.js. We did a ton of stuff on Node.js also. I'm still a big fan of Node.js in general. But I did a lot of work just on streams in Node.js, and I just remember how hard that work was because you had to think about all the old versions of streams because they were all bundled because they didn't do this minimal thing. And you have to be truly minimal. Mm-hmm. And it just kills innovation.
Locks it up.
It locks it up, and I think actually already with Casper stuff, that's the one thing I've noticed about just the modules we maintain. How many majors have we released now?
I think the biggest one, like 5 or 6.
Yeah, so like 5 or 6 big breaking changes, but just on modules, right? So we've had so the runtime stays the same.
It's still at version 1,
yeah. Yeah. So we've had like Keep deployed running on this, obviously before we fully open sourced Bear, which we just did pretty recently. That's where we're iterating. And we had breaking changes left and right, but the app just kept on running because the modules it was using was just the previous one. That's fine, they work. And then, the teams updated at their own pace, piecemeal, to the latest ones. And looking at that as somebody who loves to code, but now does less coding and more like looking at how other people code, it's really, really insane to me, right? Because we've all been in these projects where we had these big migrations. I was like, oh my God, kill me. I remember just working for people on Node.js and being like, oh, we want to upgrade from 10 to 12.
Right.
And they're like, is that going to work? And I'm like, maybe. I'm a consultant, so you should pay me a ton of money to figure it out. That's kind of like a shit job. Like, what value are you providing to do that? And with Bear, just in our own cases, we have the opposite. It's like, yeah, there's no upgrade. You're just like,
just in your own time when you're
in
ready.
your own time, take a little bit, a little bit there. You can have multiple versions of the file system running.
Absolutely, we can develop and test stuff outside of code without ever affecting code.
Yeah,
I can test the module system as an external dependency.
It's so amazing that the module system's not even in the runtime.
Yeah,
it's so amazing.
And I think I had this on my slide, and also this is always a mind-blowing stat for me. But like the team is basically Casper.
Yeah.
And then we added Yasser recently, so 2 people, right? And like it's a 2-person team making the same project.
It's like node compatible.
Yeah. And I'm always thinking about just how many people are working on just something like Node.js, which is even like pretty well run.
Yeah. It's a substantial project.
Probably as well run as it gets in open source.
Right.
And just how many people are working on it, how much money that goes into that. Not even enough, right?
Totally.
For sustainability.
Yeah.
And how 2 guys can make something like Bear. And it's like...
It's all about the design decisions.
Exactly. It's exactly that. It's not even like... It's no secret sauce. It's not like Casper is faster than everybody.
But even discounting that.
Right? It's kind of like... It's just like, no. It turns out just by doing way less...
And decoupling it as much as possible.
You can do way more. Which is... so simple. So that's...
Yeah, nice job, Casper.
Yeah, well done. I think for people listening to this, watching us, they'll probably be like, how do I get started, maybe? Check it out.
Well, you get Bear with Pair. So like, if you're into using Pair, you can just use Bear because you're using Pair.
And it's all, and to upgrade Bear, you use Pair.
Because Pair auto updates.
To get the new Pair.
Exactly. Pair auto updates P2P.
Yeah.
So you get Bear with Pair, the latest Bear with the latest Pair at any time, at any moment.
I think that clears it up.
Yeah, that's clear. But then there's, in terms of like mobile development, we probably got some more. We definitely have more to do there with Pair.
For sure.
But like
just
you can just
tooling.
Exactly.
For sure.
But at the end of the day, it's ultimately just going to be Bear running on mobile. Like, should we talk about the worker? Not the worker thing, but whatever we want to call it.
Yeah, because basically, did we open source BearKit? We open source BearKit. Yeah.
Damn.
Yeah, there we go.
Okay. So what is BearKit?
So, Casper, you want to just do
say like web workers on top of Bear.
Yeah.
So you can run like a Bear worker next to your mobile UI, desktop UI thread.
But what does BearKit do exactly?
So it actually manages a separate Bear process or multiple of them if you want it.
On the phone, on phones.
On phones and desktop.
Yeah.
Basically any system you want to integrate with that sort of runs its own thing next to Bear, like a native Mac OS app or a native iOS app, React Native app.
So all the apps.
Basically all the apps, yeah. Any sort of GUI thing you have running like in the front, you will then be running or can run this Bear worker using BearKit behind the scenes. That's where you put all your business logic. You run all the P2P primitives there, and then you'd do your GUI thing in the GUI thread.
And the worker code, because I've written a couple of these. It's fun. It's a lot of fun. It's actually exactly the same on desktop, mobile.
Yeah.
You name it. Even if we deploy it on the watch or in the brain in the future, with brain chips, which is pretty cool.
Right. and very scary also. But I mean, the brain chip thing's really wild, and it's so crazy. We start off talking about, oh, this is a little pet project, this runtime pet project, and now we're talking about brain chips.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
That's minimalism, right? It's
yeah, because that's what we're saying. That's what really the point I'm making is like, because it works in any situation. It works in any situation, and it works on embedded as well. And so we're at a point where, this sort of many years ago there was a big push for like, what was it, write once, run anywhere, and that was never really fulfilled, and it sort of went by the wayside as a sort of like almost like a myth, almost like a fallacy. But this is the I don't know if we keep calling them workers, and I think that can be confusing for people. We're not talking about web workers or anything like that. And we can't call it a back end because it's peer to peer. There is no back end. So I like to think of it as the pair end.
I like that.
Yeah.
I was first waiting for you to say that.
Thanks. Teed it up. But this sort of pair end idea that will you implement your business logic, your pair end logic, and then you just have UIs and a UI. What is that? A user interface. It doesn't even need to be a graphical user interface.
No.
It can be like you say, like it can really get to the point of an AI interface or a brain communication interface, and that is and you can reuse that same logic between all of your devices, and then you put pair on top of that, where pair can run that. Pair can execute that code from a remote location, P2P. It's game changing. It's so game changing, and it's so nascent that the industry and the world, they're not ready for it, right? They're not. And the thing is, this is good. Like we say brain chips, and it's like, whoa, like that's kind of scary. But at the same time, that's what the majority of like the centralized industry is going towards. And you don't want AI and you don't want brain chips controlled with a central point of failure for a start. Yeah. Everyone who's in technology knows you don't want a central point of failure. So why would you do that with brain chips?
Yeah, totally.
So we want to do that in a P2P way before it happens.
Yeah, I also think because obviously we talk big talk when we talk about Bear and these things, right? And we're also just very concrete developers. And the reason why we're comfortable talking big talk, because obviously we're not running it on a brain chip. No. Brain chip is under development.
Right. But it's just an embedded device at the end of the day.
It's just an embedded device, and we know the design, because Bear is like just designed to be minimal. Mm-hmm. By itself, that design can run anywhere. Mm-hmm. Because that's what minimalism is. Mm-hmm. Sure, there's work to do. Like we need to probably make more bindings. Yeah. We have a beautiful design that binds to any kind of JS engine. Casper made a libjs, right? Yeah. It's called, yeah. Now I said the word lib. I'm gonna check if anybody which is really, really cool. So you can actually make it run in actually really low resource environment with a little bit of work, but like with the same code still. So I think that's actually one of the things that makes me so exciting about the future, because it's one of those designs where you can just see where are we right now and where can we go. And there's actually very few unknowns in between there. There's actually, there's always work, but like the design is just so good. Yeah. And you don't see that often, I don't think.
Not seen it for years.
No, and we just, because we go back with JavaScript, and we talked about this kind of design for ages. Right.
Even the Node community in the early days talked about this kind of design.
And then I met Casper at Hole Punch, which is awesome. And Casper talked about the same things also, which is kind of like, it's always interesting when you meet somebody who talks about the same thing. And then, unlike you and me, Casper just did it.
It actually started as just a fun weekend project.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Was it just a curiosity thing, or what was it? Can it be done?
See if it could be done.
Yeah, fantastic.
We should.
That's how these things go, isn't it?
That's so awesome. And I love that. And I love that about just like having this also like a work environment where we have that kind of freedom to think about how to solve these hard problems.
Well, that's actually another interesting thing, because like there's this sort of like interaction between how Hole Punch is run and the tech that we're building, aka Conway's Law, etc., etc. Look it up if you don't know. But the thing is that like that high autonomy for like individuals within the organization. Like there's goal setting and stuff, but then it's like, okay, now you go figure that out. This sort of way that Hole Punch is run fully remote and all that, fully peer-to-peer, like our technology and the way we organize ourselves is interacting in a way that leads to like unbelievably compelling results. And it's kind of like, how have we not well, the fact is, as a species, we have been working like that for thousands of years until like the recent like information era, right? Where it was middlemanned out, like, and now, I mean, I don't know about you, but the world feels uncomfortable in that state to me.
Totally.
And so much more so now, being part of this organization that's very, like, has a very sort of decentralized approach to work. Like, we were talking about stress last night and how the worst stress is the one where you don't feel in control of your life. Like, other types of stress are actually healthy, and like you sort of, that type of stress is there to help you like output, right? And so if you have something to do and you feel like, oh, I need to like get rid of this stress, you can just do that. But if you can't control it, then it gets overwhelming and you get like health issues and all sorts of things. And so like that seems to happen more in sort of centralized organizations from my experience. But within Hole Punch, like it's the right kind that you don't feel out of control. You feel like I'm in control of this and I can do something about it. And that's extremely powerful for like productivity.
Yeah,
and life, just good life.
It's good to have smart people that can iterate things.
Yeah, absolutely.
Really fast. So yeah, that's awesome.
And the iteration thing also, there's no problem if you don't get it right, because that's part of the process. Right?
Sure.
And sometimes we think we've got it right, and then we go, this isn't quite right.
But yeah, totally. And that's also, I think that's reflecting on how we made Bear and made the software. It's like really powerful iterative engine. It took us like 5 versions or something to get right, I think. Small at the very early stage.
Yeah.
At least we've been iterating it really heavily. And now we're just ready to run it everywhere, and people should check it out and run it everywhere. Because it's really fun. It's very easy to work with. It's very easy. I mean, I'm just sitting here thinking there's so much stuff we haven't talked about that I don't even want to talk about because, then it turned into a lecture.
Yeah, we're trying to talk about Bear and I'm talking about organizational complexity.
Because it kind of like always, obviously, because we're committed people and it fits together. But I'm just thinking like, Bear has a freaking killer module system for loading any kind of add-on. That's insane by itself. It means you can, integrate any kind of native thing very easily. So it's not just JavaScript. You can run your whole freaking thing. It's almost like an OS. I don't want to say that, but it's almost
like a kernel.
It's kernel and pairs the OS almost.
Like, that was for them. That's an insane thing.
Mm-hmm.
Check, right? The whole thing where I can use any JS engine underneath, interpreter underneath.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right.
It's not a question of if you can do it. It's a question of which ones should I use for this purpose.
Because Node is locked into V8, and V8 is quite a big JavaScript engine.
It's an amazing project, but it's not I don't think you can run that on brain chip, for example.
No, exactly.
But then there's other projects like Bon or whatever that uses different ones, like JS Core and others that use different ones. And Casper just decided, let's just support all of them. Yeah.
Right. How does that work though? Because like it's like super simple, right, to switch out the JavaScript engine, whereas in other projects it's a little bit more complicated.
Yeah, something in the sense that there's an interface between Bear as a JavaScript runtime and the underlying JavaScript engine, and so you basically just implement that interface for the underlying engine. And we have 3 implementations already: one for V8, which is what we ship in Bear itself.
Right.
Then we have one for JavaScript Go, which took a weekend to implement. And we have one for QuickJS as well,
and QuickJS is for like embedded devices and things like that.
And we were just talking at the conference to somebody about running JS and hardware. There's a JS interpreter for that.
Yeah.
Oh, and I was like, Casper, can we make bindings? Can we make bindings for that? Yeah, a couple of days. It's kind of like that's kind of like the crazy unlock where you can just deploy this thing everywhere.
Right.
And that's why we actually are deploying it everywhere already.
Right.
Even though it's a really, really new project.
Yeah.
So we're going really crazy.
It's sort of escaped the cage, hasn't it?
Yeah. It's not coming back in the box.
Yeah, it's too late.
And when people learn more about it, I think they're going to be and start to try it and see that it's a real thing. It's not just hype. It's actually a real thing.
Right.
It's a really real thing.
It's just the workhorse.
Probably like the real stuff, the things we do almost. It's gonna be scary. I like to use that word now. So,
In a good way.
In a good way. Or Americans.
Depends on your perspective and who you are.
So yeah, it's awesome. Yeah. So I think maybe we should end it there.
Yeah. Use Bear. Use Pair.
There's going to be documentations in pairs.com for Bear. We're going to have bear.pairs.com. I'm sure we'll have
Bear.pairs.com.
Well, it's part of the fun.
It's BARE, by the way, not BEAR, not like rah, like nude bear.
But the logo is going to be a bear just to make it more fun.
Yeah, to make it more fun and confusing for everyone.
It's part of it. Modularity. How do you do your strategy memes?
A lot of wordplay.
So that's great. Yeah, check it out. It's really awesome. I have a lot of fun as a developer doing it. I've actually, everybody we talked to had a lot of fun working with it, and everybody started using it. So it has that secret sauce. So that's awesome, yeah. Joke.